The history of tennis. Tennis is one of the most popular sports in the world, with millions of people playing and watching it. Its history is long and fascinating, with origins dating back hundreds of years. The game has evolved greatly, from its early beginnings in royal courts to the professional sport we know today. Tennis as we know it today started in France in the 12th century. The original version of the game was called Jeu de Paume, which means game of the palm, because players hit the ball with their hands. Over time, players began using gloves, and eventually, rackets were developed to strike the ball. This early version of the game was played indoors, and the rules were very different from modern tennis. The game was popular among French royalty, and it soon spread to England. In England, tennis became known as real tennis, or royal tennis, because it was mainly played by members of the royal family. Henry VIII, a famous English king, was a great fan of the game and helped it grow in popularity. However, real tennis was much more complicated than the modern version, and it was mainly limited to the upper class. This version of the game continued to be played for centuries, but a simpler version of tennis began to emerge in the 19th century. The game of lawn tennis, which is what we play today, was created in the late 19th century. In 1873, a British Army officer named Major Walter Clopton Wingfield developed a new version of tennis that could be played outdoors on grass. He called it Sphairistikè, which is a Greek word meaning skill in playing with a ball. However, this name did not last long, and the game soon became known simply as lawn tennis. Lawn tennis was designed to be more accessible and less complicated than real tennis. It became popular in England, especially among the middle class, who could now play the game in their own gardens or local clubs. Soon, the sport spread to other countries, and international competitions began to take place. The first major tennis tournament was held at Wimbledon in 1877. The Wimbledon Championships is the oldest tennis tournament in the world and remains one of the most prestigious. Other famous tournaments, like the U.S. Open, the French Open, and the Australian Open, followed in the early 20th century. These four tournaments together make up what is known as the Grand Slam of tennis. In the early years of tennis, only amateur players were allowed to compete in these tournaments. Professional players, who made money by playing tennis, were not permitted. However, in 1968, a significant change occurred when the Open era began. During the Open era, both amateur and professional players were allowed to compete in major tournaments, leading to a new era of growth and popularity for the sport. Many great players have shaped the history of tennis. In the 20th century, players like Rod Laver, Bjorn Borg, and Billie Jean King made huge contributions to the game. Billie Jean King, in particular, is known not only for her skill on the court but also for her fight for gender equality in sports. She famously won the Battle of the Sexes match in 1973, where she defeated Bobby Riggs, a former male tennis champion, in a highly publicized event. In recent decades, tennis legends like Roger Federer, Serena Williams, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic have dominated the sport. These players have broken many records and have brought new levels of skill and athleticism to tennis. Their rivalries have attracted millions of fans around the world, and they continue to inspire new generations of tennis players. The future of tennis looks bright. The sport continues to grow in popularity, with more countries producing top-level players. Advances in technology have also improved the game, with innovations like instant replay and better racket designs making the sport more exciting for players and fans alike. In addition, tennis has become more inclusive, with greater opportunities for women, players from developing countries, and athletes with disabilities. The rise of wheelchair tennis and para-tennis has shown that the sport can be enjoyed by people of all abilities. Tennis has come a long way from its early days in French royal courts. It has grown into a global sport that is loved by millions. The evolution of tennis from jeu de paume to lawn tennis, the rise of professional players, and the achievements of legendary players have all contributed to its rich history. With its bright future, tennis will likely continue to inspire players and fans for generations to come.